you're looking to learn how to shoot compound bow, you came to the right spot. Today we're diving all in, talking about it, and we're gonna set you up for success. That way you don't develop bad habits from the get-go. So stay tuned, we're gonna show you what you need to know. Before we get into this, make sure that you start out with a tuned up bow. So if you purchased a bow from like Cabela's or Bass Pro, you can go into their store and they'll set the bow up for you. If you don't start out with a tuned up bow, you're just gonna be coming into a lot of issues when it comes to arrow flight and stuff like that. So you wanna start out with a nice tuned up bow. So that is gonna be the baseline first. The next thing you wanna do is sight your bow in. I have a lot of videos out there on how to sight a bow in, so I'm not gonna go into the specifics in this video, but check those out. Get that thing sighted in, that way you can shoot accurate shots before we start worrying about our mechanics. All right, so we're gonna head into talking about the mechanics now. So we got a tuned up bow, we got it sighted in. Now we can start learning how to use the mechanics to our advantage. That way we're making nice, consistent shots every time, because in archery, it's all about consistency. So what I like to focus on first is my stance. We need to get our footwork right. So I'm gonna kind of zoom in on my stance. So imagine this arrow is pointed straight at my target. I want my back foot against it, and then my front lead foot maybe 6 inches back from that arrow. What that's gonna do is allow me to open up my front shoulder a little bit more to allow more clearance and prevent injury when we're drawing the bow back. So about 6 inch back with the front lead foot. So that's a nice baseline with our footwork, but if you're out shooting 3D or anything like that, the ground is uneven. I mean, I've even shot with me on my knees. I mean, there is gonna be a lot of different shots out there, especially if you're bow hunting, that you might have to make, and you're not gonna be able to stand perfectly like that every single time. So that is subject to change, but that's just a good baseline starting out. So the next thing we need to look at is our grip. Before we start drawing the bow back or anything like that, we need to have a nice grip. So a lot of people, when they grip the bow, they'll just death grip it like that. What that does, it puts a lot of torque on the bow. So when you release the arrow, that grip is very strong and it's not letting the bow do what it needs to do. So what I like to do, and there's no right or wrong way to do this, I like to place my first 3 fingers on the front of the riser. And you can do the 4th one if you're just starting out and you want to be consistent. But what that's going to do is allow you to be doing this the same way every single time and not death gripping it. And another thing I want to show you, if you've ever got string slap before on your wrist, where you shot the bow and it slapped you really hard with the string, then you were probably like this, had your arm straight, and you can see the string is in my forearm because I'm death gripping it. But if you notice, if I tilt my hand out, my elbow angle changes, and it actually puts my arm in a completely different angle. So that string isn't even gonna hit your arm when you release it. So all you have to do, put your fingers on the front of the riser, and it automatically tilts your arm, and the string has enough clearance that it's not gonna hit your arm. So that right there is a big thing that I see a lot of beginner archers make the mistake on. So if you start out, put your finger on the riser, that automatically tilts your hand, and it's gonna get your forearm out of the way, and you're not gonna get that string slap anymore. And it's gonna make you consistent every single time and not placing any torque on the bow. Because what you really want to happen is the bow just to sit in there and you're not squeezing or nothing. I'm just resting my fingertips on the riser, and then I got my thumb around like this. So the next thing we're gonna do, now that we have grip out of the way, is we're gonna talk about the draw cycle. So I have a thumb style release, which I strongly recommend. I have battled target panic my entire life, where, you know, if you've ever had trouble keeping your sights on target, that's called target panic. I've had that my entire life. This thumb style release has cured that almost all the way. So I strongly suggest one of these, but if you do have the trigger style release, you need to be doing the same thing as far as the draw cycle. But once we get to talking about the mechanics of firing off the arrow, that's when we'll talk about the different release aids. So what you want to do is find your D loop, connect your release aid to it, and what we're going to do is talk about a proper draw cycle. And this right here is subjective as well, but this is what I have found prevents injury for me, because I've had shoulder issues my entire life because I played baseball my whole life. But when it comes to archery, I haven't had very many injuries at all related to archery itself. And I'm still pulling a 70-pound bow, and I have tons of shoulder issues. So this right here hasn't hurt my shoulder at all. And I'm gonna show you how to do it the nice, easy, safe way. A lot of people are really strong, but they can't pull back a 70-pound bow, and it's because they're doing the mechanics wrong. You know, I see a lot of people go ahead and have their arms straight and they're pulling like this with their elbow down. To me, that is way more difficult than a high elbow. I start out with a high elbow. I start out with this elbow bent, and we're gonna focus on our back muscles. Your back muscles are really the driving force behind drawing your bow back. So what I do, I start out bent like this, and then I'm just pulling with my back. I'm driving this elbow down because it's gonna be like this, and then I'm pushing at the same time. So push and pull, and then we're gonna be able to hold it. So very easy right there. That mechanics is gonna be a lot easier to pull back a heavier bow than if you're just trying to pull like that, which I can do that too. It's not too bad, but I found that I have to come up into the target. It's just not as natural as coming down like this, and then you settle into the target. So that right there is just something you can mess around with. Whichever one helps you the best be accurate and prevent injury is the one I would strongly suggest. But it feels like, to me, if I have my elbow high, my shoulder is in a good slot right there, and it just kind of feels natural to me. When I'm like this, I have injury right here in the front of my shoulder. That right there puts a lot of strain on that part of my shoulder for some reason. So that's why I avoid that style of draw. But that's just something to mess around with. There's no right or wrong way. But another thing you want to look at is for deer hunting. You don't want to be spooking the deer with you making a lot of movements. So you definitely want to start out with a bow that is the right poundage for you, that you're going to be able to draw back. So if I'm in a hunting situation, I'm not going to be coming down into it like that. I'm going to be starting out just nice and easy like that. Not moving the bow hardly at all to make that draw, because deer have really good peripheral vision. If you're moving and you're doing a lot of this, they're definitely going to see you and pick you off. So be sure you're minimizing the movement when you're deer hunting. All right, so that's the draw cycle. Let's talk about anchor point. So your anchor point is when you're at full draw, how you can make the same shot every single time by anchoring on your face. And this is, anchor point's gonna be different for this style release aid. I like to kind of rest it on the side of my face. But if you have a trigger style, a lot of times I like to anchor back here. I'll put my knuckles on the side of my face, and then I'll rest my fingers over top of that release. Oh, we're gonna get our good stance. We're gonna get our good grip, and then we're gonna make our draw. Okay, then anchor point is gonna be where we reference our string on our face. So what I like to do is have the string in the corner of my mouth, and then I'm touching the tip of my nose to the string itself and looking down the sights. So corner of my mouth, tip of my nose on the string. So this is where you can adjust your draw length to match what you need to have. I almost have a completely straight arm, but it's slightly bent, just a little bit. I don't want to have it completely locked out, just slightly bent. And then I have corner of my mouth, tip of my nose. And the point behind the anchor point is to have the same one every single time for consistency. If you're not anchoring the same way every time, your shots are not going to be consistent. Consistency is the key when it comes to archery. So you want to replicate things every time the same way. So the next thing we need to do is learn how to aim the bow. So how I like to aim the bow is you have your peep sight that you're going to look through, and there's a bunch of different styles of peep sights and different sizes, but you're going to be looking through your peep sight and then looking down to your pins. So I do have a single pin sight, so it's a lot easier for me. And what I'm doing is I'm looking through the peep and I'm centering that dot in the middle of my peep, and then I'm putting that dot on the target. So you're gonna do that for every single type of sight. If you have a multi-pin sight, you're gonna have to pick out whatever pin that you wanna use. So let's say your top pin is 20 yards and you're shooting at 20 yards, then you're going to center out that top pin in your peep and then put that pin on the target. So that's what you have to do to aim. It's kind of hard for me to do that on camera and show you exactly how to do it, but that is the point behind it. So here we go again. We're gonna get our anchor point, and then we're gonna show how to go through and release the arrow. So I got my stance, I got my grip, nice light grip. I'm ready to draw the bow. Okay, getting my anchor point now, nice soft grip still. Okay, I'm aiming. Okay, right here is where I want to, with this style release aid, I'm going to wrap my thumb around the trigger, and then I'm just going to squeeze, and I'm pushing with my front hand as well. All right, so what that's going to do is give me an unintentional shot. It's going to go off without me knowing about it. So it's going to be like a surprise shot. Like, I know I want the arrow to go off, obviously, but it's going to be a surprise shot because I'm squeezing and I'm pushing and I'm keeping that pin on the target, and then it's a surprise shot from there. But if you have a trigger style release, you're going to be at full draw, and what I like to do is have a nice relaxed hand, and then I have my trigger finger over that trigger, and I'm just slowly squeezing, and I'm kind of squeezing my entire hand. I don't want to just punch the trigger like this. Squeezing my entire hand, boom, 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 until it's a surprise shot, just like that. I found if you use your entire hand nice and relaxed and you kind of just put pressure, it gives you a better surprise shot than you just really focusing on a trigger like you would a gun and just punching that shot. Then you're going to be all over the place. So that is a little tip right there for being more accurate with your release. So let's do another one here. Really focus on a nice light grip, good anchor point, looking down my pin. All right, and then right here you can tell I don't really have a lot of torque on the bow because I'm just letting the bow kind of fall out of my hand. And the reason it's doing that is because I'm not gripping the bow like crazy. The bow's just doing what it needs to do after that shot. Give you a different angle right here. Just like that. All right guys, thanks for checking out this video. And like I said, if you're brand new to archery, very easy to make mistakes. So hopefully this video kind of clarified some of the stuff you need to do, some of the mechanics you need to learn before you just start slinging arrows all over the place and developing some of these bad habits. So this is just a simple baseline. This is by no way the right way to do every single thing. There's a multitude of different ways you can do everything. So a lot of people draw the bow different depending on high, middle. Some people do it way low. Million different ways to do it. Whatever works for you is what you need to do. A lot of people have different stances, different grips. I mean, different anchor points. There's a million different ways to do it, but just find something that works for you and something that you can replicate every single time to make sure you're being as consistent as possible. So guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, put those in the comment box below. I'd love to get back with you, or just throw some stuff in there that has helped you over the years. That way people can read the comments and it can help them out too with all of your tips, tricks, and stuff like that if you want to throw those in there. Also, I'll put some links in the description box to some of the products I run, some things that help me out to shoot a little bit better, and some products I found over the years that are just really good products. Guys, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in future videos.